Okay, so this is just a graph of the cycle, basically. So the hormones involved with ovulation and all of that. So you should know that all of this starts, from the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sends a releasing hormone, GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, and it sends it to the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary will secrete FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So we've got 4 sort of graphs here. So the first graph shows levels of FSH and LH. Okay, and then right under there shows the follicle and what's happening there. So just keep in mind, just remember from what we talked about before in oogenesis, you have we as females, we made a finite number of primordial follicles with primary oocytes in them. Okay, and every time we go through this cycle, females start to grow about 20 primordial follicles or primary oocytes into mature follicles, and usually only one ends up mature. So if we look at these charts, this is a cycle. So the cycle runs for 28 days. So we've got day 1 to day 28. You can see that down here, day 1 to day 28. So when you think of the hypothalamus, the hypothalamus is secreting gonadotropin releasing hormone, and it releases it all month. Okay, so I'm just going to put that up here. Okay, so mid and 28. Okay, and gonadotropin releasing hormone, I can put this in like yellow. On day 1, there's a slight rise. A slight rise in gonadotropin releasing hormone, and then over the course of about 14 days, it kind of runs like this. Just, it sort of squirts it out in consistent impulses, okay? And then around day 14, just before it, we get a slight rise and a decline, and then it's back to the same. And we'll get back to 28. Here we are at 28, and here's 1. So that's how GnRH behaves. Okay. So the anterior pituitary is here. So we've got FSH and LH. So day 1, both of them start. If we look at FSH first, it's starting low, gets maybe a little bit higher and a little bit lower, and then it has a little bit of a peak, and then comes back down, and then it's pretty level through for the rest of the way, for the rest of the cycle. LH is about the same. It's pretty about the level there, and then it has this huge peak about the same time of the peak of FSH. A huge peak, and then down, and then kind of stable again. Okay. So what is that causing? Because we know that's coming from the anterior pituitary. That's not being stimulated by the uterus or the ovary or anything like that. That is stimulated by the anterior pituitary, which of course is stimulated by the hypothalamus. So here's our follicle, and here's our primordial follicle with our primary oocyte, and we're starting our cycle. So we've got a little bit of FSH here, follicle stimulating hormone, and here we go. We're starting. Remember, we're stuck in prophase 1, and we're starting to continue that. So we go until we get to here. We've got our Graafian follicle, our mature follicle, and then we have our slight peak of follicle stimulating hormone, and then we have a big peak of luteinizing hormone, and then we have ovulation. Okay, so our oocyte gets barfed out, and we have what's left, which is the corpus luteum. Okay, so we have the corpus luteum, and that's what we've got. Okay, so if we go on down here to look at what's happening with estrogen and progesterone. So here's day 1. Estrogen is starting to build. It's starting to go up. And luteinizing hormone is kind of what helps to kind of start this. So it's got this little peak here, not a peak, but it's starting to kind of make it go. So estrogen's starting to go. And then at ovulation, boom, right before ovulation, it peaks. So levels of estrogen go way up. So now we have ovulation, and then it plummets down after ovulation. And it starts to build up a little bit. It's kind of slowly starts to come up again here. If we stop here for a second and go back and look at progesterone, progesterone is flat here because we're making the follicle. Okay, progesterone is more for once we get to where the ovulation occurs, progesterone really helps the endometrium to really build up. Okay, to get all fluffy and ready and all ready for implantation. So we've got progesterone here, level, and then ovulation occurs, and progesterone goes way up. Okay, so we're getting the uterus ready. So up here, once you get to here, you see things start to go down. They're going down. Why? There's no fertilization here. So with no fertilization, both estrogen and progesterone decline significantly so that we can enter menses. So if you look down here at menstruation, this is the endometrial lining, right? And here we have the follicles growing. We've got a little bit of estrogen growing. We start bleeding. So we started bleeding, meant to get rid of everything, and then we start building up as estrogen's going up, because day 1 is the day you start bleeding. So once you get to here, we're done bleeding, we've got more estrogen coming, and we're starting to build that and get things ready and get to ovulation. Then ovulation occurs, we get a burst of progesterone, and we get a really good endometrial lining here. We get to here, and if there's no fertilization, this drops off, and then we enter time to start bleeding. Okay, so that's how the hormones are regulating what's going on. So if we get to here, and there is fertilization, then the corpus luteum will take over once the zygote comes together, and it will feed the zygote and make sure the zygote survives to get through down to the uterus, to implant into the uterus, and to start growing there. Okay, and then once the placenta takes over, so it makes implantation, makes this placenta, and once that takes over, then the corpus luteum basically goes away. It basically shrivels up. Okay, so all depends on whether or not fertilization occurs. Normally, it won't occur. I mean, for most people, you get fertilization 2-3 times, and that's it. All right, so the rest of the time, this is what's happening. There's no fertilization, progesterone and estrogen decline rapidly, and then we have menses, or a menstrual period. Okay, so I'm sure there's a graph like that in your textbook, but that's basically what's happening through the hormonal regulation of the cycle.